On September 19, 2024, the US Treasury sanctioned a bank on Stalin Street in South Ossetia. This single action exposed a secret bridge, a bridge that allowed the Russian war machine to fire 10,000 artillery shells a day, bypassing every sanction on the books. This building officially doesn't exist in the global financial system. It ignores the US Treasury. It is the world's most dangerous shadow bank. It was the secret financial bridge between Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un's weapons program, a $30 million lifeline. The forensic trail of the MRB Bank, the financial black hole that changed the logic of the war, begins here. This is Voice on Pages, decoding how power actually moves. If you've been following Voice on Pages, you've seen this pattern before. This isn't just a story about weapons. It's about what happens when the dollar-based financial system, the system your savings rely on, gets bypassed. The same system that froze $300 billion of Russian reserves overnight has created a massive pressure valve in the global capital flows. If you are watching your pension or your investments, you need to understand that the rules of global finance are being rewritten in the mountains of Georgia. When the rules of global finance can be rewritten from a mountain bank, the dollar in your retirement account is only as safe as the sanctions protecting it. To understand this new reality, we have to look at it in 3 layers, each one a data-driven mechanism of the new shadow economy. Layer 1, the kill switch and the loophole. In 2022, the West pulled the swift kill switch on Russia's largest banks. It was meant to be financial decapitation, a total freeze of capital. But every system needs a release valve. When the front doors were locked, the Kremlin looked for a back door that no regulator could reach. They found it in South Ossetia, a territory Russia recognizes independent, but the UN sees as part of Georgia, a legal and financial black box. The mechanism is simple. TSMR Bank in Moscow uses MRB Bank in the mountains as a buffer to move money to North Korea's state banks. This provides plausible deniability. Moscow can claim it has no jurisdiction over a private bank in a territory that officially isn't theirs. But the US Treasury's forensic trail is unambiguous. This isn't a private venture. It's a state-sponsored shadow banking network operating at the highest levels. Through MRB Bank, $30 million in frozen North Korean assets was released. For Pyongyang, it was their first stable gateway to world capital in years. $9 million of that was earmarked for crude oil, violating UN caps, and keeping the North Korean military moving despite global isolation. The consequence is the birth of a parallel financial universe, one where the dollar has no power and the US Treasury has no eyes. The kill switch was pulled, but the logic of capital found a way through the mountains. The global board has been split. And if you've seen how alternative systems are already being built to bypass this, you know this isn't isolated. Layer 2, what the money actually bought. By late 2024, the Russian war machine was consuming 10,000 artillery shells every single day. That is a shell every 8 seconds, around the clock. And here is the shocking mechanism. 60% of those shells came from North Korea, and the MRB bank chain was the financial mechanism that made the entire trade possible. Without the shadow bank on Stalin Street, the Russian artillery would have gone silent. This deal turned Kim Jong-un into Russia's primary arsenal. The total value of this arms deal is estimated at $5.5 billion, a massive infusion of capital for a regime that should be bankrupt. It wasn't just shells. North Korea provided ballistic missiles, weapons capable of striking deep into Ukrainian territory with terrifying precision. The financial mechanism at MRB Bank manufactured reality. It directly funded the expansion of Pyongyang's production lines. Trainloads of munitions moving across the Eurasian landmass, paid for through a bank that officially doesn't exist. This is the new logic of war. We've seen this logic before, not with banks, but with assets. Contracts replaced overnight. Ownership rewritten in days. Intelligence reports show that these payments were processed through correspondent accounts opened specifically for North Korean state banks. The consequence is a conflict sustained by shadow capital, making it immune to traditional diplomatic or economic pressure. Sanctions are no longer enough. We aren't just seeing a trade. We are seeing the integration of 2 military-industrial systems, unified by a mountain bank. Layer 3. The barter, what Russia got back. The May 2025 MSMT report reveals that Russia didn't just pay in cash. They paid in high-end military technology that Pyongyang has craved for decades. Capital flows aren't always about cash. In this barter deal, the most valuable currency was advanced electronic warfare systems and air defense. These are systems designed to counter the most advanced Western aircraft. It is a massive leap forward for North Korea's defensive posture. But the real prize was satellite technology. Russian assistance in orbital deployment has fundamentally upgraded the North's strategic surveillance. Intelligence reports also point to missile guidance improvements. Russian engineering applied directly to Kim Jong-un's nuclear delivery vehicles. This is the barter architecture. By avoiding cash, they avoid the very systems designed to track and stop them. It's an invisible trade of lethal expertise. And then there is the energy. Russia provided oil well above UN caps, fuel that keeps the North Korean military moving despite global isolation. For 20 years, the global community relied on sanctions to contain North Korea. MRB Bank didn't just bypass those sanctions, it rendered them obsolete. The consequence is a nuclear pariah state that is now more technologically capable and financially secure than at any point in history. The mountain loophole in South Ossetia has effectively dismantled 2 decades of global non-proliferation policy. The board has been reset. There is a deep paradox at the heart of this story, one that should concern anyone who values the stability of the global order. The same country that spent a decade enforcing UN sanctions on North Korea, voting for every resolution, is now its primary financier. The dollar system created the pressure, but every system needs a release valve. South Ossetia became that valve for the Russian war machine. And so, on a street named after the 20th century's most infamous dictator, the 21st century's shadow financial order was born. The board hasn't just been reset, it's been split. A parallel world of capital is now operating outside our reach, and it has no intention of returning. The mountains of South Ossetia prove that you cannot sanction a logic that has already left the room. And this isn't just Russia. Capital is already repositioning globally, quietly, systematically, and at a scale most people haven't noticed yet. If this changed how you see power, subscribe to Voice on Pages, and tell me in the comments, is this the future of global finance, or the beginning of its breakdown? Because in the end, capital doesn't have loyalty. It has logic. Steve, signing off.